and this is a very natural phenomena that happens, that when people just get used to or adapt to positive changes in their lives. So when we first fall in love, we get married, we have this honeymoon effect, and then after a while, you can't sustain that passion forever.
And in fact, doesn't it pretty much dissipate? Helen Fisher, the anthropologist, said it dissipates after 18 months, which is such a bummer.
2 years. 2 years.
2 years.
2 years. On average, yeah. On
I
average,
feel so much better.
It's interesting. On average, it dissipates in 2 years, but that means that some people get unhappy very quickly. Others maintain their happiness for much longer, and that's also true for new jobs, moving into a new house, having children. And so we adapt to almost everything positive that happens in our lives. And we have to understand that this is very natural, this is very normal. I think some people, they're constantly moving jobs. Like we know in Silicon Valley, there are people who are just, every 2 years they're moving to a new, like something even better. There's always something better. Or they move to new relationships, or they keep upgrading cars. Or we're doing a study of people who upgrade smartphones, right? It's like, you're never satisfied. You always want more. And there's an adaptive component. You can argue that human beings would never really make progress if we were just satisfied with the status quo. We always want more and more, but there's a hedonic cost to that, right? There's a downside to that. And so that we're never satisfied for very long.
Having said that, you do need some forward-looking behavior and goal-oriented behavior to sustain happiness, right? That's what they say. You have to have a positive view of the past, but also a promising view of the future, right?
That's right. Always pursuing goals. We talked about the importance of goal pursuit, that happy people are people who always have a project. They always are looking to something new around the corner. They're pursuing meaningful life goals, no matter what their age, or whether they work or whether they stay at home. Having goals is really critical to happiness.
And that's why when people retire, they're not necessarily that happy just playing golf, Ian.
Really? Because I was really looking forward to this.
Let me ask you about this.
Two answers to the question of sort of why different nations are different in happiness. I mean, one is wealth, the GDP, and not just wealth, but democracy, egalitarianism, good sort of social welfare. You'll notice that the countries that do well are doing well, economically, and they have just pretty good distribution of wealth, better than we do. And the other answer is really social capital and social support and community. I mean, the countries that are happier have good social support. When you ask people, do you have people who you trust, who you can rely on? One study that I just heard about, I thought that was so interesting, showed that the poorest countries were the least happy, but had the most meaning. And you thought, well, how could that be? How could people in poor countries have the most meaning? And it turned out it was religion. It was that they were the most religious countries, and people who are religious tend to report more meaning. So there's all these different factors. There's religion, there's social capital, there's GDP. They all kind of work together.
Go ahead, Jen.
Ingredients of happiness, there are three. One is having a sense of control in your life. And I think we're lucky in Western cultures to have a sense of control and autonomy in our daily lives. Control. The second is personal growth. Anything we can do to help us grow as a person, to learn, to have new experiences. And the third is having to do with relationships, connecting with others and contributing to our communities. So autonomy, control, relationships, and growth, I think, are the three critical components of happiness and how to improve happiness.
We hear so much about
for many, many years, and it does sound hokey, and there are people who are like, oh, they tell you should count your blessings, you should be grateful, and I've always found that to be kind of trite and hokey. On the other hand, there's all this research that shows that when we truly appreciate what we have, when we're grateful to the people in our lives, it makes us feel more humble, it makes us feel happier, it makes us feel more connected. So we find, for example, that when you write a gratitude letter to a person in your life who's been good to you, it raises humility because it makes you realize that your success is not just because of you. You're standing on the shoulders of giants and people who have helped you. It makes you feel more connected to that person, and it makes you happier. So lots and lots of research shows that trying to be more grateful and appreciate makes you happier. It also gets back to what we were talking about before, about hedonic adaptation. We tend to get used to and take for granted almost everything positive in our lives, including your kid getting into Stanford, right? At first, you're thrilled, and then you kind of get used to it, and then you worry about your dishwasher breaking, And so appreciating what you have is actually a direct way to combat adaptation, right? To really try to appreciate your spouse, your new home, your car, your smartphone, whatever, that will help you really enjoy and savor the things that you do have, so you don't focus so much on what you don't have and on wanting more of what you don't have.
It does. Same thoughts from any of you? Go ahead, Sonia.
Well, I think, so generosity is really important. Lots of research shows that when we're kind to others, when we're thoughtful to others, not only does it make other people happy, it makes us happy. And then, positive thinking, again, it's hokey, and I don't want to say we should all just think positively all the time, but it is critical to happiness when we're optimistic. That might create a self-fulfilling prophecy where, if we're going on a job interview or want to ask someone out on a date, if we're more positive, optimistic, we're more likely to have success, and it makes us happier. So even though it's kind of a hokey, I would say that positive thinking is also important.
I also think developing deep